Come, come here. Come here. Come on. Hey, sit. Sit. This dog is dying, I think, rapidly. She has a lot of cancer. She had tumors, exposed tumors that we got removed. She's throwing up all her food, usually. Hopefully she doesn't throw up this cookie. She's throwing up like every other day. We're trying to get her diet right, but she's still happy. Come on, lay down. Sit down. There we go. So I noticed that my video with my dog had more views than um, all my other videos. So I think YouTube algorithm detects dogs, and there's a lot of people who love dogs. And so I went and got a treat to encourage her to be here so that more viewers will be there. So her name is Zoe. She's a golden retriever. There's Zoe. I'm just going to do a update. Listen to the birds. I don't know if you can hear the birds with this microphone. So with these kinds of recordings, it might be nice to have a better microphone. Paul Vanderklay talks about how Jesus ended up winning, and so the King of Kings in Jesus' day was like the emperor, but the emperor and his culture and government, they all died, but then this religion around Jesus ended up growing, and I think this there is this emergence, this emergent property in the world where, um, and we also, I think it's coupled with what would be called evolution. You end up with things kind of growing and fading away over time, depending on the strategy. And it gets into like just basic economics. Certain strategies are better than other strategies. But that can get complicated. But the strategy of the Holy Spirit backed by love, loving God and your neighbor it works. And so all of the people and the religions that have enemies, where there is not love, they don't work. They end up failing eventually. And you can run this experiment in your life with the people around you. You can see which strategies work. I've been learning about cognitive distortions. So one of the big ones that prevents you from embodying the Holy Spirit is black and white thinking, where you actually perceive an enemy. Um, one side is that you demonize someone or some people, and that doesn't win. Like it's written in our heart. Like if you listen to your heart, you'll see that that doesn't work because you can test out a way of thinking where you have no enemies, where you love your enemies, and it works. You can go learn about all the people who fought their enemies and killed their enemies, and you can ask yourself, did it work? And it really just depends on your goals. What is your biggest goal? So if your biggest goal is to take care of the people you love, um, you could have an enemy come into your house and you have to deal with a situation like that. And if it's one individual by themselves and you kill your enemy, you might be okay. You wouldn't be as good if you could transform your enemy into a friend. That would be even better. But then once your enemy is working in a group, if you kill that enemy that comes into your house, the chances of more people in that group coming to get you increase. And so your best ideal strategy is to transform your enemy into your friend for the benefit of everyone you love so that you increase the probability of you and your people thriving. It's very pragmatic. So like when you are not loving, you increase the chance that you and the people you love will be harmed because you will be perceived as an enemy. So we're humans and we all have this potential to detect threats, right? It's not even our potential. It's like our primary mode of operation. It's like we're born sinners. I used to think that means we're born ignorant, but it's deeper than that. We're born such that our immediate response, our default position, our default mode of operation is not ideal for every situation. But so we have to practice questioning our default mode of operation. had the opportunity to get in a lot of fights throughout my life for different reasons. There were people who, they would call me a friend, and I would call them a friend, and then they would get into trouble and get into a fight, and they might wonder why I wasn't going to fight with them. And it may appear that I don't have loyalty, and it may appear that I'm a coward, but really I'm just a thinker. So I did not join the military because I'm a thinker, and I didn't fight alongside these people because I'm a thinker. They, you go and join the military and you end up in a position where you are fighting, and you brought it upon yourself. You go into a situation where you're now fighting, and you brought it onto yourself. It's like um, one way to look at life is that everything that you receive is exactly what you need. You can use that to learn and grow and become a better person. And so when I don't join your military and I don't join your fight, when I don't when I love your enemy, you know, it's because I know the truth. The life, the truth, and the way. These uh these religions, when I say that, I can include critical race theory, and I can include physics. So you have these dogmas. The dogma is the thing that is true because it comes from an authority, whether that's a person or a system or a book. And so when people who know the real truth question the authorities of your religion, you will be tempted to disregard and dismiss the people who know the truth because you have not allowed for those people to be an authority. Like ultimately, the individual is an authority because you are the one who decides who should be an authority. You're doing it whether you do it intentionally or not. Most people are being programmed to give authority without consideration and thought and care. And that's the reason we don't have education. And so, what do you mean by the word education? So, for all of the people with all of their religions, education means learning everything you can from the authorities. It does not mean learning the process of learning, where we become our own authorities about what is true. So these cognitive distortions get in the way. The first one was black and white thinking. The other side of black and white thinking, the criticism I received was that I have too much nuance. And I think I understand that criticism because black and white thinking is very easy, it's very simple. And once you start trying to add nuance, it can be overwhelming. Like the human mind can only, on average, keep track of three things in our short term memory. So the human mind is pretty limited. And so the way you build about a complex understanding is you have to take points and connect them together in order to form a picture, a map. And then within every point, you can dig in and add more points and start connecting them together in a map. And you're mapping reality, what is real. And so when you do black and white thinking, when you jump to a conclusion, you stop the process of developing the map. You know, sometimes you're being chased by a tiger. You don't have time for nuance. Sometimes you're being chased by a bunch of wild pigs. Two different situations. It might be good to remember that wild pigs cannot climb trees. And it might be good to remember whatever you need to know about tigers. But I don't have tigers, but I do have wild pigs. So that's an example of prioritizing your knowledge, like what is most useful. It could be bears and wolves and coyotes and mountain lions. So it's good to have some knowledge about those. But more dangerous than all that are humans. And so I put this stuff out on the internet, and my prayer is that by being filled with the Holy Spirit, then I can't be misinterpreted, would be that would be the hope. And so when you're not filled with the Holy Spirit, when you're doing cognitive distortion, when you don't know the truth, when you aren't willing to transform into a better person, you're in dangerous territory. What concerns me is that if I love your enemy, then I will be confused as the enemy or confused with the enemy. So, for example, if a bomb is dropped and I go and start saving a child's life, I might be at risk of being killed and being confused as the enemy by people who are not filled with the Holy Spirit, who are not righteous, who have unhealthy minds, who see things in black and white. And that's the world we're in, just filled with unhealthy minds. So you got all these unhealthy people who have jumped to conclusions and are not willing to change their mind because they have given their authority to someone else. Why would you give your authority to me? especially if I'm not asking for it. If I'm saying, don't do it, don't give your authority to me, take it for yourself, decide for yourself, learn to think. So I'm willing to help people learn to think. I'm really good at it. So I can, one thing to look out for is contradictions in your thinking. So a contradiction can like indicate that your picture is not true, and that can be a problem. Notice that I didn't say it is a problem, and notice that I didn't say it means that your map is wrong, but these are like the things you can look out for. It would be good when you have a contradiction brought to your attention, it would be good to be able to explain why that contradiction is reasonable. And so I see tons of people being hypocrites, saying contradictory things. Because people do not take personal responsibility for the mistakes they are making. If so and so said it, then it must be true. If this book says it, then it must be true. If I've dedicated my life to believing this, then there's no way I can question that, really question it. Do I even know how to question my beliefs? That seems important, being able to question your beliefs. All right. Well, this was brought to you by Zoe, who will be dead probably this year. Maybe not. You might live another 2 years. We'll see. I think she will start losing weight as her internal organs fail. If none of the other organs are failing faster, she'll just not be able to keep a healthy body if it's all in her digestive system, or it prevents her from getting the food she needs. But other things can fail first, and you can have cascading failures. Be careful what you give your attention to. And ask yourself, those people that you're giving your attention to, what are their authorities? What are the authorities they pay attention to? And you can see it. And you can see some of the mistakes other people are making because it's directly connected to their authorities. And it all comes back to your goals and how honest you are about your goals. Because you can lie to yourself. You can say, my goal is to love God and love my neighbor. Or you could even condense it to, my goal is to love myself and my family. Or to love my family. You could say that. But then, is that your goal at every moment of the day, at every day? So you can lose focus of the thing you think should be your most important goal. And so then, in a way, it's dishonest to say that's your goal. You could say something like, when I think about what my goal should be, I think it should be this. But in practice, my goal is only that one, the ideal goal, for, 5 minutes a week, maybe. You could say that, if that's honest. So think about the ratio or the percentage of time in which your ideal goal is front of mind. Like you can juggle three things in your mind on average. I mean, if you can't juggle anything, you're dead. If you can only juggle one thing, then maybe you have an excuse. But if you can juggle at least two things in your mind at the same time, then perhaps the most important goal should be up front. And then my recommendation is to just put aside at least some time regularly to question what should be my most important goal. And question, like, what does that look like? So I love my family, my wife and children more than anything else in the world. So I say that, take my own advice. And it's like, is that my number one goal? What percentage of my life is that my focus? And it's my number one goal is to love God, and that's why I create this video. And that's why I try to be a good software engineer. So I do these other things besides love my wife and children. Because, I mean, this is dangerous. Like, if I go out into the world and love people that are your enemy, then I can be confused with the enemy. And that's dangerous. Those critical race theorists, you know, they have enemies. And if I show love and kindness toward their enemy, I might be confused with their enemy. And there are unhealthy people, lots of unhealthy people. If I love black supremacists, then I might be confused with the enemy. And if I love white supremacists, I might be confused with the enemy. I mean, the black supremacist and the white supremacist are like the embodiment of black and white thinking, like the true form, like the worst possible manifestation of the sickness. And so it's like, well, how do you love those people? You love them by having empathy for them, for knowing why they are the way they are. And I was asked, do people lie to you, Gavin? And I had answered, no. And then the person said something like, Gavin, you're fooling yourself. And so when he said that, it occurred to me that he was lying to me, or he has lied to me. And I know he is a liar, and I know he likes to condemn people who are liars. And so, you know, we are tempted to believe that others are like us. And so my temptation is to believe that there are other people who are trying to embody the Holy Spirit and be honest and want peace on earth and are trying to learn and improve and transform. And there are people who aren't doing that who will try to do that in the future. So, like in 20 years, someone could watch this and they could think, oh, 20 years ago, I would have thought that this Gavin guy was delusional and arrogant. But you can take those words like delusional, and you could use the word faith. So I was told I was delusional when I said I know how to create peace on earth. Now, when someone jumps to a conclusion and says you're delusional, they've done mind reading, which is this is another cognitive distortion. It's a mental sickness. It's understandable. I've done it plenty of times. I'm careful not to do it. So the proper response is, what do you mean by peace on earth? Proper response is a question. You have to question your first response, your first reaction. And so, like, I have peace on earth right now. And I've had peace on earth for a long time. The percentage of my life that is peace on earth is vast. It's larger. Like most of my life is peace on earth. And so you could say, is it 50%? Is it 60%? 70%? And then maybe if you ignore before I was X years old, it's been even more peace on earth. Maybe there were times in my life where it was less than 50%. And so it's a practice. And I seem to be getting better at it if I measure it like this. In my experience, it's like, and the way you have peace on earth is that you learn. This is what we have control over. The same person's like, he repeats the alcoholic's prayer to know what you can change. And that's the thing is you can change yourself. You can learn. I can't teach you, but you can learn. That's how you get peace on earth. You learn. You got to be a student. You'll find peace on earth. I think this is part of what is meant by the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Obviously, an enemy could bust up in my house right now. And if I try to show love toward them, there's a chance that they would cause harm and do violence. Ooh.